welcome to our living room. Royalty has gone mobile.
Royalty has gone mobile.
At Press's booth at the NRB conference.
Yeah, and we welcome you to NRB 2023. And we're so glad to have you. And if you don't mind, would you just introduce yourself?
Certainly. So my name is Lathan Watts. I'm Vice President of Public Affairs for Alliance Defending Freedom. Alliance Defending Freedom is the world's largest nonprofit legal organization. So our mission is to advance the God-given right to live and speak the truth. So we defend people of faith, their constitutional rights. Most of our litigation falls into kind of 5 big categories: religious liberty, free speech, the sanctity of life, marriage, and parental rights. So we're a Christian ministry. We're considered a nonprofit by the IRS. So we operate based on donations, and that allows us to never bill the clients that we represent in court. So no client of ADF ever gets a bill for our services. And when you have cases that go on sometimes many years to get all the way through the court system up to the Supreme Court, honestly, it would bankrupt most people if we were billing them by the hour like a normal law firm, and our clients would not be able to make the stand that they're making, but for us operating as a nonprofit. So that's why we operate as a 501c3 and supported by generous people around the country and around the world.
So we'll put your website on our...
We would appreciate it. Yeah, it's adflegal.org. And that's also where to find us if you need our help.
Right. So when someone's in trouble, they call you because their freedoms are being infringed.
I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a constitutional scholar to understand, but you do need to know a little bit about your rights to know when they're being infringed upon.
Right.
And if you know that much, or you just think maybe they are, that's when you should contact us and let our legal team take a look at what's going on and determine if we can help, and we will.
But you said something very interesting. You said, if you know your rights. I mean, most of us just lay down and assume that they're telling us what we need to do because we're being told. How do we, as people, step up to, does your website have a listing? I mean, with the exception of going through the Bill of Rights and, going through
well, a lot of us probably still remember from high school civics, the freedoms in the First Amendment, most of our cases fall under one of those types of protected liberties. But there is a lot of information on our website about a lot of different cases that we're involved in that demonstrate how or what in government infringing on those rights, what that looks like. So it may not be that it's happening to you, but you see that it's happened. You read this case and you're like, oh, that sounds like something that happened, in my town, or that sounds like something that, if I was in that position, I would want somebody standing up for me. So it's a way to educate yourself as well. A lot of good information on it.
Well, no, I appreciate that because I think we all need to know, because sometimes you don't. You're not sure. Right,
that's true. But I think all of us have kind of, as beings who are made in the image of God, have an innate sense of right and wrong because we're created in His image, and it's that imago Dei that's what motivates the natural human response to injustice, because we're made in His image. He's a just God, and
that's beautiful.
So if your gut is telling you this just isn't right, probably not. And that's probably when you need to get in touch with us.
Yeah, I love the way you explain that, because you don't typically hear that from your lawyer.
Well, I'm a recovering attorney.
Okay.
I'm part of our communications operation, so my job is to try to translate the legalese into English for everybody
you did
else.
A very beautiful job of that.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to my boss. It's performance review time.
Yes. But so, what are the hot topics you want to share with us today?
So, probably the case that you may have heard about is called 303 Creative versus Alanus, and that case was argued in front of the United States Supreme Court back in December, and so the Supreme Court term is coming to an end, and so we're expecting to get their decision in that case. Honestly, it could be as early as this week. But the court term will wrap up usually mid to late June, so we know it's coming, sometime in the next few weeks. And that case is a very important free speech case. Our client, Lori Smith, is the owner of 303 Creative. She's a graphic and website designer. And she would like to do custom wedding websites for clients. But she lives in Colorado. And she saw what happened to another client of ours named Jack Phillips, the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. She witnessed what he has gone through, and is still going through, by the way. He's still in court. We're currently representing him in front of the Colorado State Supreme Court right now.
That's been
We're going on a decade now.
Goodness.
I mean, his legal odyssey is now longer than the Trojan War. So Lori saw all of this that was going on with him. She shares similar beliefs on the issue of marriage. She's willing to serve, all clients, but she is very particular about what message she's going to create. And so she would like to do custom websites for people's weddings, but she knows how Colorado will treat her. If she enters into that portion of the business, they're going to try to force her to do a wedding website for a same-sex couple that, by her conscience, she just cannot. Same scenario with Jack Phillips creating the custom wedding cake. So she consulted with her pastor, and the pastor recommended she contact us, and she did. And close to 7 years ago, we filed, it's called a pre-enforcement challenge. And what that means is it's really a hallmark of the civil rights movement, of civil rights litigation, that you shouldn't have to be forced to break a law and suffer the consequences of it to demonstrate that it's an unjust law. So you file the lawsuit even before the law is applied against you, and that's what she did. And it's now at the Supreme Court. As I said, our CEO, Kristen Wagner, argued it in December. Oral argument went very well, so we're cautiously optimistic we'll get a win in that case. And what's really at stake in that case is the true meaning of free speech, right? If Lori wins, really everybody wins. So even people that vehemently disagree with her, their right to create the messages they want to create or say no to some messages they don't want to create would be protected by her win. If she loses, then a government that can tell her you must say this, they can tell you you must say this. And it, depending on who's in charge of the government, they may find something that they don't like that you don't, that you do, or vice versa. So it's really censorship and coerced speech are just two sides of the same unconstitutional coin. So hopefully a strong opinion by the Supreme Court will finally settle this issue, that government cannot force you to speak a message that you disagree with. And that would be a great win for her. It would be a great win for everybody in the country, but it would also probably, hopefully, for Jack, end this nonsense for him too. As I say, once and for all, the Supreme Court says you cannot do this.
How long has she been at this?
Her case is, I think, close to 7 years now.
Wow.
It can take a long time to get all the way through the court system up to the United States Supreme Court. And just the fact that the court took the case and is willing to hear it.
That is big.
They really only hear about 1% of the appeals that are filed to the Supreme Court. So the numbers are against you. So just the fact that they're willing to take it says that they're interested, hopefully, in settling this issue.
Well, and I'm appreciative to your organization because there's no way 7 years of legal fees.
Right. I mean, even if we were just charging the average hourly rate of an attorney in America, her legal bills and Jack's, 10 years would be astronomical, probably 7-8 figures. And they're small business owners. There's no way they could do this. Right. So thankfully, we have generous supporters that keep our litigation efforts funded, and so the clients never get billed for it, and that takes at least one part of the pressure off of them, because honestly the process itself can be as much of a punishment as a bad outcome can be. Just going through this, for 7 years, 10 years. Because
the baker in Colorado has suffered such extremes.
Yeah, I mean, you name it. I mean, death threats, he's lost a lot of his business. He's at downsize. So there's financial implications to that, and there's the stress of being sort of this public face of this issue that you never wanted. Nobody wakes up wanting to be a client of ADF.
No,
right?
But we're very thankful you're there. But I do think it's really important to say again, it's a win-win for everybody, because nobody wants to be made to do what they disagree with.
Thomas Jefferson, who was probably not the most traditionally religious of our founding fathers, but he referred to religious liberty as the right of conscience. And so even people who aren't particularly religious or don't have a faith tradition, they should care about religious liberty cases. Because for the person of faith, that conscience is informed by their religious beliefs. If you're not a person of faith, you still likely have some set of ideas that you want to live your life by. And if the government can force a religious person to violate their conscience, then they can force you to violate the beliefs that you believe in. And the whole point of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution was to limit the power of government. If you allow government into the space between man and God, then what limit is there?
There is.
I mean, if you lose that, just pick your favorite of the rest of the Bill of Rights, because if you lose that, they will eventually all go away. And go ahead.
So do you think all of this is the result of how we're emotionally driven as Americans, and the government being able to more easily manipulate this so that our rights are infringed upon?
There's kind of a popular phrase in the culture that says law and politics are always downstream of culture, but I don't really 100% agree with that. I think law, politics, and culture, it's more like a whirlpool. Like they're constantly influencing each other. And so we obviously are focused on winning in court, but we're also trying to win in the court of public opinion, because we want a culture that embraces ordered liberty. That was the founders' vision, of our country. And so if the law can help move the culture, then the culture influences the law. It's like a symbiotic relationship, right? So, a good example is like the civil rights movement, right? In the Jim Crow South, the culture was not ready for integration, and the law was ahead of the culture on that, and the culture adapted to the law. So, when the law is important because the law can be a teacher, right? I mean, after we messed things up in the Garden of Eden, right? Beyond that, after that, right, there are basically 3 institutions that are divinely ordained to build human civilization: the family, the church, and civil government. If we had not messed things up in the garden, we wouldn't need civil government.
No, we would not.
Right? But we did, so we do. And so the law, I love the law. I love working with our clients and our attorneys, because when we're at our best, those of us in and around the legal profession, we're sort of co-laboring with God to restore some divine order to the chaos that ensued under a tree in Eden, which is why it's so important that we get the law right. Because when we get it wrong, it just contributes to the chaos.
It only goes.
Right, and so you get one court ruling this way on an issue and another court ruling another way on an issue, and it's like you have to have a moral foundation. That's what the founders were seeking to protect with the religious liberty aspect of the First Amendment, the proper role of religion in a free civil society. You can't have freedom and morality are inextricably linked. You must be good enough to be free. Because if you just have freedom and there's no sense of morality involved, the strong will inevitably oppress the weak. Right? Every time. That's the whole story of human history, right? So that's this sort of idea of ordered liberty. That if you have liberty but no order, it's just chaos. If you have only order but no liberty, then you're in tyranny. Right? So it's what kind of makes our country unique in the history of the world.
And what you're fighting to is to do something way bigger, because we are, a lot of people say we're at a tipping point. There's so many things that are eroding.
Right.
And overnight.
Yeah, and I think also like trying to keep things in perspective helps too. Christianity has been countercultural from day one.
This is true.
We shouldn't be surprised that it's countercultural now. Right. In fact, if it's not, we're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we are uniquely blessed to live in a country that is built on the idea that government should never force you into a position of choosing between obeying God and obeying government. That's what religious liberty and free speech and all these things are really about. So then what do you do when government who's founded on that idea does so? Right? Thankfully, they gave us a court system. Right? And I consider that a blessing.
It is.
And we have, the parable of the talents tells us we'll be held accountable with what we did with the blessings God gave us. And so it's not easy being one of our clients, but they take the stand that they do because at some point they realize it becomes bigger than just them. I mean, we are absolutely fighting for them, but when we win, especially the Supreme Court case, we create a precedent that protects everyone. And I think that's what inspires them to keep going year after year and endure what they have to.
Well, it does give me appreciation for them that they will stand and you all stand with them and they're not alone, but appreciation for them as being heroes of free speech.
They are absolutely my heroes.
Would you say there's as much pressure with public opinion following the case as much as there is actually in court, if not more?
Yeah, it's interesting because most people, if they remember some of their basic civics from high school, which a lot of people don't, some people, especially the Supreme Court, decide something and they don't like the opinion, get sort of outraged about, that they didn't have a say in it. But the founders set up the federal judiciary with lifetime appointments and gave them sort of immunity to public opinion at the ballot box for a reason.
Right.
Because in a pure democracy where everybody is just voting on everything, you have the potential of a tyranny of the majority. 50% plus one vote can vote to take the rights away of the other 49%. And so when we the people express the popular will through our elected lawmakers, if we express that in a way that runs contrary to the Constitution, it's the judiciary's job to say no.
Right.
That's why they're immune from the ballot box. They should not be influenced by what is popular or unpopular. Their job is to say what the law is and what the Constitution requires. And if they say no, and the people want it bad enough, we have an amendment process. We have. So I think some of what you see, a reaction to certain court decisions is because a lot of people don't have a full understanding of this is why, that the judges are given this authority. They're a check on the legislature, they're a check on the executive, and vice versa. There have been decisions that came out that the legislature then went and enacted a law because they didn't like the outcome of a Supreme Court case. That's what led to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That's why it was passed. After a case called Employment Division versus Smith, which I won't bore you with the legalese details of. But I think that's why there's such an emotional reaction, because for people that don't understand the real role of the judiciary, they somehow feel like they don't have a say in it. But it's important that the judiciary stay independent, because you never know when what's culturally popular is winning. Is going to be, if your viewpoint is going to be in the cultural popular majority, and if it's not, you want a judge to be able to stand up and say no.
Right. Yes. How do you say we win the culture's opinion? Because it's interesting. I too find that rather than go based upon fact and letting evidence lead to truth, it's based on emotion and just bits and pieces we see. We don't even have time to absorb information like 40, 50 years ago, sit down, read a newspaper, actually absorb the information. We have so much access.
We have sound bites.
Yes.
That's it. We make a decision on
I'm curious how you think we win the culture's opinion when it's such a massive culture that we're up against.
So that's part of why we do what we do on the communication side of Alliance Defending Freedom. So we talk about our clients, we talk about our cases, we do media, and we do national and local and you name it. Because for us, it's not so much that we expect or that I mean, obviously we would love for the culture to agree with our clients, but what's even more important is that the culture respects our clients' right to live according to their beliefs, even if you disagree with them. It's fine if you don't like what our clients believe. If I sat down with every client that we have, I could probably, if we got in some deep theological discussion, I could probably find points of theology that I don't agree with them on. But with my last breath, I would defend their right to live according to what they believe, because if they can't, I can't either. So
that's huge.
That's I think the win in the culture. It's not so much that you agree with us on Christianity or what the Bible says about this topic or that topic. It's that you respect the right of people to live according to their beliefs, even if you disagree with them. That would be a cultural win. And there's some things that cultures are constantly changing. I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we can say, all right, we got that fixed. Let's move on to the next thing. So it's a constant conversation. But what's dangerous right now is that people of faith are being excluded from the conversation. So that's what a lot of our work is about, is making sure that they're allowed to speak. Speak what they believe, and live according to what they believe. That's the free exercise of religion. That's the second clause of the religion clauses. And I tell people all the time that's in the First Amendment, where it says the free exercise of religion, is probably the only place in the English language that you will have somebody try to convince you that the word exercise means belief. Of course you're free to believe whatever you want. But now if you go start acting on those things, well, we may have to have a conversation about that. It's like, no, I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer or a constitutional scholar. Just look at the semantics. I mean, exercise implies activity.
Yes.
I mean, if all it took for me to have six-pack abs is just to believe in my heart that I have them,
wouldn't it be nice?
I would have them, right? But I don't, because there's a certain amount of activity involved to get them that I'm unwilling to do, right? But that would be a very, very dangerous and narrow definition of religious liberty. Of course, you're free to believe whatever you want, but once you walk out your door and start living according to them, well, I don't know about that. So that's a long answer to your question, and I apologize for going as long. But
it's really, really good.
It's one of those things that I don't think you'll ever get to the point where you can say it's fixed, right? But every generation has the obligation to continue defending it.
Well, it makes me hopeful to hear from you, because in some regard, particularly my generation, I feel like, and even in the past generations, we've dropped the ball for the next generation. And it feels like there's a writing of, making it right. Leaving something better as a legacy for our next generation.
I mean, that's why I do what I do. I have two daughters, 19 and 17. And I've told them many times, God willing, you're going to outlive me. And my goal with what I've dedicated my life's work to is that, when that day comes and they're putting me in the ground, I want you to be able to look at each other and say, the old man did everything he could.
He did. He
did everything he could. And it's not so much...
No, that fight, you stood.
Right. And it's not so much... everybody wants their kids to have a better life than they did. And a lot of times we think about that in terms of economy and jobs and stuff like that. But it's... if we let these things erode to the point, it's always easier to stop something bad from happening than to try to fix it after it's happened. Right? It's like, I think it's Ben Franklin, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure.
Right.
If we don't take the stand now, it will be very, very difficult for my kids and their kids to have the kind of life that I've had. They will face things that I never had to face, and I don't want them to, so it's personal, for me and probably for lots of people at ADF, who've dedicated their lives to this.
It's like being purposeful with what you know and with what's right in front of you, with whatever you can do with your human strength,
Absolutely. The duty's ours, the results are God's.
Right.
Well, there you go.
Wow.
There you go.
That's how we look at our work. Right? We've been very fortunate, very blessed to win a lot. Year after year, we win north of 80% of the cases we're involved in. We've won 14 Supreme Court cases in the last 12 years. 303 Creative will hopefully be number 15 here in a couple of weeks.
We'll be keeping our eye on that one.
So, we've got a good track record.
Right.
We've got great litigators, great appellate lawyers, but we're very cognizant of the fact that if God's not in it, then it doesn't really matter. There's a great quote from Ronald Reagan in his second inaugural address where he said, I realize we must be cautious in assuming that God's on our side, but I think it's okay to continually check that we're on his side.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of our approach to our work in Alliance Defending Freedom.
That was the question with Joshua.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if we're on his side, and we're on the side of the Constitution, well, in this country, we should be winning 80% of the time, right? I mean, there's something wrong if we're losing, right? But the best thing about it is seeing these just normal, everyday Americans who are just people of faith, just trying to live their life peacefully, according to their beliefs. Never wanted to be,
in the public eye.
Right. But once it's thrust upon them, they're willing to stand up, and so we will stand with them. They will, so they don't have to stand alone. Courage is contagious.
Oh man, that is so good.
I know.
I want to tell you, you made all the lawyer jokes that everybody tells obsolete. You just became heroes to us.
Nobody likes lawyer jokes more than lawyers.
No. I will tell you a tremendous respect for what you are doing, how you're standing, and how you're standing alongside God. God's doing the battle, but.
I'm originally from Northeast Arkansas and grew up kind of in the country, and there's a country expression that says the best place to pray for a good harvest is standing behind a plow.
Yeah.
Right?
Let him go.
Right. I mean, we pray, but at some point you got to put your hand to the plow.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're doing.
Wow. Well, may the Lord bless you. And
thank you. You too.
And the fund. And I would say the name again because I want to
Alliance Defending Freedom.
Yeah. Alliance Defending Freedom.
And we have $1 million question for you.
That's right.
The one of the day we asked every
we haven't been able to
articulate
it correctly, and I'm a little worried because your language is so perfect.
Right. And we've had half a
That's the first time I've heard that.
But I see Hayden over there, so I feel confident. If you could ask the American public, and you had the platform to reach everybody, what was the one question you would ask them to have them think?
What would you do without freedom?
Oh, sucker punch to the gut. Why was that so?
And we don't want to find out that answer.
No.
We don't want to find out, and that's the whole deal with you all. You don't want us to find out that.
Absolutely not. I mean, my grandparents, the World War II generation.
Yes.
They're the last generation to actually truly face the prospect of what would we do if we lose.
Yes.
Right? We're now 2-3 generations removed from that, and you take for granted the things that are common to you. So if you've grown up in freedom, you don't know what it's like not to have it. And human nature is to not place as high a value on it as you should.
Right.
But we work internationally too. I mean, we've got cases in 60 plus countries right now. If you talk to one of our clients internationally about what we have here, what they would give to have it. Yes. And it's another reason why we have to continue to advance these God-given rights, because frankly, there's nowhere left to go.
There is. I've tried to, it kept me up at night. There's no place. But I want to tell you, my daughter Lily, we adopted from China when she was 7.5 years old. And she and Anna Gray are great friends. And she's now 21. No, she's 22.
Oh my gosh.
But a more politically astute young woman you'll never, because she will say, and she remembers, don't talk about communism. Right. Because she remembers. Right. And then I have some friends, who came over in the Cuban, and you hear that, and you're just like, don't talk to me about socialism. Right. And we romance it over here, and the deal is, we cannot romance it anymore. And so looking back on what our forefathers have done, you all did a great job, and I look forward to looking at your website more deeply.
adflegal.org.
All right. All right.
One last plug.
Well, we really do appreciate it. It's more than a plug. You're giving us tools to do life.
Yes.
You know, and
Glad to
so
do it.
we want to stand with you, and so we thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we appreciate it.